guys, it's Shayla again from Freckle Finance, and today I wanted to do a video on employer-sponsored retirement plans. If you're new to this channel, make sure you click that subscribe button below. I upload videos on personal finance, financial independence, and lifestyle videos. So to get right into this, I'm only really going to cover the two main types that most people get. I know that there's, if you work in certain sectors, there's like 403s and other stuff, so I'm really only going to cover the main two. First kind is a pension plan. It's very rare now. When I looked up online, they made it seem like it's almost obsolete in the US. I'm not completely sure. I know that they still do exist in Canada. I worked at a job that actually, I was a temp employee, but the permanent staff did get pension plans, so I know that they do still exist in Canada. But this is a US based retirement video. I do, if you're Canadian, I have done videos on RRSPs and tax-free savings account. So a pension plan, just to be able to state the difference between what a pension plan and a 401k is when the employer on your behalf takes money and invests it, and they usually have like a big grouping of everyone's money. And so when people retire, they only have to take some of the money out for those that are retired and pay them out, and it's usually a portion of your income. There's mathematical equations different for every company, so it might be 80% of your highest 5 years of income or so that you get for the rest of your life. One thing that is a huge negative of pension plans, well, there's two, but one of them is still kind of a negative for a 401k. But the first is that pension plans are not a guarantee. If the company goes under, their pension plan goes under too. So you could have worked at a company for 35 years, worked very hard, you were contributing into this pension plan the entire time, and the company goes bust and now you have no retirement plan. So that obviously doesn't work super well. I know my mom and my dad both have pension plans and they worked for very solid companies. I don't think my dad's company is going anywhere, and my mom's is like government funded, so I don't think it's going anywhere. Or you could also have the pension plan be underfunded and just get less than you were promised, and you planned on this money and you don't get it. I don't think that was like super common to happen, but it's still a possibility. Now 401ks are far more popular. I believe it started off as something that was written into the tax code that employers started to take advantage of. So it's a tax deferred, which means you take part of your income now, you put it into the 401k without paying taxes. This depends on the type of 401k that you're doing though, but generally that's what it is. And you in retirement can take the 401k out, the money out of the 401k, and you pay taxes only then based on your yearly income at that point. So if your yearly income is significantly lower than it currently is, when you retire, you will actually end up paying a lot less taxes, and that's one of the benefits. Quite commonly, but is not required and not always occurring, is that there's employer matching, usually between 50 and 100% of what you contribute. One huge negative I find about the 401k, just coming from Canada where RRSPs are accessible outside of your employer, like your employer can contribute to it, but you can just go to a bank and sign one up, is that not everyone gets one, and I don't feel that that's really that fair. So while we're talking about employer match, I know that a lot of people who watch my channel are huge Dave Ramsey fans, but I'm just gonna put this opinion out here. You don't have to follow if you don't want to, but employer match is free money. You're either guaranteed, like if you're getting an employer match, as I said, it's usually 50 or 100%, you're guaranteed that 50% or 100% on your money. And it is so rare that your loans are that high. If they are that high, you're probably using payday loans, which you shouldn't have in the first place. But it's better to get guaranteed 100% back on your money or 50% back on your money than to pay off debt and save 12%. Now that's if you care more about your net worth, which you should take into huge account, but also your peace of mind is important too. So if that's the case, you can pay off debt earlier. As well, I'll put the little disclaimer that if you can't really afford your rent and food and etc., don't be doing the employer matching. Don't be putting the money into that. You need to pay for your four walls first. So here's another downside that I find to 401ks. Now, I still think you should contribute. It's just how much you end up contributing will depend, but not all 401ks are made equal. Your employers can kind of decide what options you have, what kind of accounts you can have to invest in. Maybe you only have mutual funds with pretty high fees in it. And if that's the case, only invest what you can get a match on, and try to find somewhere else with low fees to invest otherwise. But there are also plans that basically are as pretty much unlimited as you can get just in a regular brokerage with low fees and such. So definitely look at what options you have. Some people don't have very many options, but if you do have a lot of options or even minimal options, try to get the one that is well diversified, making pretty good compared to how the stock market, like making a pretty good increase compared to the rest of the stock market, but also low fees, because fees are like the biggest killer of your investments going up. And if you're finding that your fees are very high, I would say anything over 1.5 or 2% is pretty high, and you can look into getting an IRA and putting the money into there, although the maximum amount for an IRA is significantly less than a 401k, but I do think that that's worthwhile to look into. The contribution level for a 401k is $18,000 a year, but you do get an additional $6,000 if you are over the age of 50. Now this is what you can contribute. I know when I first came here I was confused and I didn't know if it included what the employer contributes. There is a maximum, which I think is around $56,000 combined for contributions, but your employer contribution does not count towards the $18,000. So you can put $18,000 a year or plus the $6,000 if you're over 50. Another major downside to 401k, and actually this also applies to the IRA, is that you cannot withdraw from the accounts until you're 59 and a half years old without paying a tax penalty of 10% on top of what you're already paying in taxes. So if you're someone like me and my husband who might retire before you're 59 and a half, you have to consider how much you're going to need how much money you're going to need beforehand, and whether the 401k is actually worth it, or the IRA is actually worth it to invest the money, or at least the significant chunk of your money. Obviously, that's still a pretty early age to retire at, but if you're like really retiring early and you're actually this is really the plan, then you need to consider other options, because you don't want to pay that 10% tax penalty. You might want the money, at least for those years up until that age, to be somewhere else where you are going to take less of a tax hit, because that like completely excludes a lot of what you can get. But however, 10% extra tax on a 401k with a low fee actually is still better if it's matching than elsewhere. So keep in mind that you should still probably take the match, but aside from that. As well, this one probably affects a lot less people, but you are forced to start taking money out of your 401k when you're 70 and a half years old. But that is really more for financial planning when you're older, to make sure that you don't leave so much of your money elsewhere that when you're 70 and a half, you have to start taking out money that you do not need and paying taxes on them before you need to. So that's, for most of my viewers, that's something that's far off in the future, but just if you are close to getting to your retirement, that could affect when you withdraw money from certain areas. If you have any other questions regarding the 401k, let me know in the comments down below. And remember that no matter what your financial situation is, have a great day. Bye.